All right, welcome to the Leadership to Wealth podcast. Guys, we're glad to have you here today. Our guest today has been helping people resolve conflicts and finding inner peace, really step up their game and impact in the world. She is the creator of Energetic Solutions, Inc., Success Systems, and she has been helping thousands of people around the world really be able to achieve health while building success and uncovering their true calling. Our guest today, Sheevaun Moran. Sheevaun, how are you doing today?
I'm awesome, thanks. I'm awesome.
Glad to have you on the show. You know, this is a great question, actually, probably for us to get started. You're over there in Huntington Beach, California, right now, where the weather's probably pretty good. Up here in Canada, we got a bunch of snow outside, and so in comparison. But what I really want to ask here, just to get us kicked off, because you're used to working with CEOs, entrepreneurs, people that are aspiring to be. What do you see sort of as the biggest obstacle, biggest problem for people in, when they're trying to either get to the next level or just get it started? And maybe there's two different problems for those two different sets.
Generally, there are kind of two pieces of puzzle where people get stuck. One is worthiness. Worthiness to do what they think they're supposed to do, share it, etc., or even get to that next big level. It doesn't matter the numbers. It's really fascinating to me. That is a big conversation. And another one is, what do I say? It's the most curious thing I've been thinking about over the past several months. And I thought, everybody since I started this asked me, well, what do I say? Or how do I say that? And I'll talk about that in a second, because it's a really important position that virtually no one talks about when I started reflecting on this. And then the other one is breaking their habits of, blue collar mentality. Blue collar mentality is just enough, in my opinion. And I'm speaking about it. So those are three. I ended up with three things where people get really stuck. And if they're in a business and they're leaving a corporate thing, the weirdest thing that they get stuck on is needing to have a boss to look over. That's really interesting to me. It's really a fascinating little thing. So those are some things that people get stuck on. It's really essential to deal with your beingness, I think, in order for each of those to get unwound and broken through.
Dealing with your beingness. Can you say more to that as it pertains to entrepreneurs, investors, and the like?
Sure. So we'll just use myself as an example, getting started on the podcast. My computer wasn't doing, phone shut off, my other phone shut off, the none of the browsers were working. And I could have gotten angry. I could have, of course, yes, I, hit my table. I was like, come on, what is happening? But not with anger. It was just like, seriously, where is the hiccup? Where is the problem? Realizing that there had to be another solution and being able to communicate rather than just saying, I can't get on, I can't get access, and not letting that send me, sideways. And most people get sent sideways in any one of those four things I mentioned. If they don't know exactly what to say, maybe they say something not quite aligned or targets wrong emotion in somebody, and then they back up and back off. And I believe, my company is called Energetic Solutions. I believe you can solve anything with your energy. I believe you can solve everything with energy. And then the next part is the intent, and then the next part is the words you're going to say. And the beingness is the more you are able to say, you know what, I've got it. I don't know how I've got it, but I've got it. It's going to give you an opportunity to break through to some other level. The challenge with beingness is generally we have a health thing or a money thing or a worry thing, or somebody sends us something that's not so nice, is we generally get stuck in a spin for much longer than we need. And I know, because I've taught a lot of people, is if I can get you from that spin over to the thing that you're here to do and share and get out there and speak on or share or train or whatever that is, or even have a sales conversation, that that beingness is going to emanate through to the person that is being served or being spoken with.
Mm. Now, let me just ask this for clarity's sake. Do you find that you tend to work with people in a specific area more so than others, or do you work with entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs across the board, or do you find that you tend to stay in a certain area?
I don't stay in a certain area because the people that come and say, hey, you're the one for me, I don't know what you do, but something says, my spidey sense, you speak to me, something that is aligned there, people just seem to know. And so what I have found is it could be, I've helped food companies, small food companies, startup food companies, all the way up to a couple $1 billion food companies. I've helped tech companies. I've helped lawyers, coaches, healers, jewelry makers. For me, the people who say that I can be of value and service to them is somebody who has had some sort of awakening or epiphany. Mm-hmm. And they're here doing what they want to do. They just know something more. And it could be like right now I'm working with a company that wants to get sold, and we're working through a lot of drama in the company. Yeah. And so the gent that owns it, he and his partners own it, and they found me and they said, there's something that you have that nobody else has. And I was able to bring some things to the table that nobody else could have found. Yeah. So far, and we've already turned the ship in 6 months from not a failing company, but definitely a struggling company.
Right.
And it really takes somebody who's had some epiphany out life, they've had some break, they've worked on themselves a lot, and they know that there's this thing that I can connect to in, I call it the woo, weird, wonky way, isn't it? And that's kind of my zone. So it doesn't matter the lane.
Right. Okay. So if someone's in the woo, weird, wonky zone, if they're recognizing that there's something more, and yeah. I completely get you when you share that. If they're there, you recognize that there's something, there's value that you're able to add to them and to what they're looking to grow into. And so when you're dealing with that are with entrepreneurs, with investors, what I'm hearing so far, as we're just getting started in the conversation, what I'm hearing so far is that most of the challenges that people are dealing with aren't of a technical nature. Most of what's there is not necessarily a technical nature, but rather something that they're dealing with individually and personally. And that is perhaps the business reflecting what's going on.
Yeah, so that's a great point. It is of a technical nature, and it looks, maybe they bump up against the same thing again and again. Yeah. And yet when I do the work done, I help them find the thing that's stuck inside of them, the energy that's stuck in the way they think,
Mhm.
the way they act, the way they communicate, the way they emit their energy to the business, the way they
Mhm.
back off, the way they lean in, the way they push, the way they kind of destroy and then need to recreate, go
Mhm.
from this to this, from this to what I call is the upward trending. And so it looks technical. It looks like we need a strategy, and I'm really good with strategy, really good with tactics and marketing and all of the nuances of that.
Yeah.
However, I always relate it to something that is going on inside the CEO or the top people at the organization. Best way to communicate that is through an example. So we'll use the guy with the uh, consulting, they do consulting. They hire consultants out to big corporations all over the world. And
Mhm.
so that's their business. It's every country in the world. And this guy has been in the industry 15 years and it's been going. And when he met me, he said, I don't know what it is. There's something, I think you can help me. I said, so we
Mhm.
talked a lot, talked about where he was stuck, and we needed to hit some big numbers in order to really get the proposition to being a sold business. And the first thing I went in and looked for was I looked to see where stagnation is that nobody else is going to see it. And that's one of the interesting pieces. And so I
Mm.
looked for a couple of places and I said, hey, I want to talk about this guy in the business. And this guy happened to be one of the main leaders of one of the sectors of the business. And I said, I think you need to look at him. And my client said to me, I don't know. He's been with me 15 years. He's been amazing. It's this, it's that. And I said, I really think you need to look at him. I said, I think you need to look at what he's doing and how he's communicating and how he's really holding y'all back. Because there's something in there that he is doing that is not going to match what we're going to do in order to get it sold. So he said, all right, I'll look. I don't know. I really trust him. I really think it's right. And I said, that's okay. I'm happy to be wrong. I am totally happy to be wrong. So he started looking at this guy. Turns out the guy was just kicking back, not doing much, not really showing up, really beating down his staff, really not meeting the numbers, had excuses out the wazoo. Until I started bringing this to the front, uh, nobody would have noticed. Right.
Mhm.
And so we took that person out of the equation. I said, okay, well, we have a couple other places. And we started working in all those other places and took all of those stuck ideas that he had, the owner had, and got them to be freed up so that what could happen is they could close more deals. And so
Mhm.
they moved into the market of the US because of the freeing up of the ideas and the energy and the right people saying the right thing in the right direction. What does that mean?
Mm.
That means that when we got that particular guy out, turns out he was doing some pretty icky things that nobody ever would have revealed, interestingly.
Okay.
So we get him out, we clean that up, and then we find out that his staff underneath, several hundred people underneath, kind of have that kind of lazy mentality, but it doesn't look like
Mm.
it. It doesn't
Okay.
appear like that in the numbers. It doesn't appear like that in any of the information. And so when I started getting him to dig around, what started to happen, he said, oh my gosh. And what we identified is they didn't have urgency. And so we turned on the urgency and everything started to turn around. And again, it's a nuancy thing that the owner was allowing that he wouldn't have noticed he was allowing.
Right. He wouldn't have seen his own bias in that
And
situation.
nobody in the business saw it. No,
Yeah.
none of his
Yeah.
partners saw it. The CFO didn't see it. The board of directors didn't see it. I mean, really smart people. The Rothschilds didn't see it. Nobody was seeing it. And I said, no, there's something really here. And so we've been cleaning up that piece. And it's
Yeah.
powerful to see that come alive.
Yeah. So, what I'm hearing there is oftentimes we may not see the thing that's right in front of us that's perhaps holding us back, causing some trouble, causing that slowdown, that lag, that stagnation, as you said. And there's real power in bringing someone from the outside in to be able to take a look at these things. I mean, that sounds very true. For me, I'm always trying to invite outside counsel to be able to look at the things I'm doing, my thought processes and that. And so I can really see the wisdom of that. And I can see how someone could get into that place of stagnation, and as a result it creates that issue in their business. And would you say that that's one of the more common things that you run into when looking at people's businesses, that there's just an area that they're stagnated in?
A great phrase I hear a lot is, I've tried everything. I've done everything. I swear to
Yes.
God, I've done everything. And I'll look at something and I'll say something and they'll say, oh my God, I would have never thought of doing that.
Yes. Yes.
I would have
Yes.
never thought to look there. I mean, we have a group that has a guy who has dental group. And he said, are you telling me that one little thing that we did got us to triple our business? And I said, well, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. We did it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, it is so true how something so simple can really break the whole, the jar wide open, or whatever you might want to say. And it's interesting how also we rarely can see it. I've heard the saying that the level of thinking needed that got you into the problem, that you need a higher level of thinking to get yourself out of a problem than the level of thinking that got you into it. And oftentimes, right, that's bringing in someone else who can look at it differently.
Yeah, because you can go to a mastermind and have some epiphanies, but until somebody says, absolutely, this is an area you need to really reveal to yourself, you don't make that same shift. I mean, that's the truth. I've had enough people say, well, I've tried all of these other things and these other people. And I said, listen, I deal from the energy perspective. And if you look at corporate law says a business is an entity in and of itself. It is connected and one with itself and with the individual, and then it has some other words. And so it's basically, it's an extension of the owner energetically, and nobody talks about that. That's the only way I think about business. And that's why it doesn't matter the business for me. It's really an energetic aspect of, there's a successful business energy, and there's a good enough business energy. And then there's a business energy that's kind of going out, trying to crawl out of the pit. And, it's like, what am I going to do to help them?
Yes, it's true. I'm curious if you run into the energy of people that are always wanting to, but then they don't, and they want to do this next step, but then there's something that always seems to come up, or there's just something else to do. I don't even know how to say it, but sometimes you run into it so often that that I don't even know what you would say about that anymore. But do you run into that energy?
Yeah, I call them brilliant, talented, and stuck. Because they're brilliant. Yeah. They've done something amazing. It reminds me of a client of mine who was part of the CDC, over 20 years ago, high up there. And she wanted to go and get into helping empty nesters. Brilliant woman, very educated, just so kind and generous and wonderful. And yet her education had her. And so a lot of those folks maybe have somebody telling them to go in one direction. And yet the real direction they need to go is slightly different in order to get to that one direction. I'll give you an example. There's a company out there that I've spoken to recently, and they have a product for vocabulary, which brings more confidence and gets people in business talking better, and ESL and stuff like that. And the guy is so set on him, and his wife are so set on an app. And I'm like, yeah, but you have this really cool business right here that is going to build the thing to get the app to go zooming away into the stratosphere. And he just wants to focus on the app. And I was like, okay, well, let's see.
That is interesting. Again, back to, I guess it comes back to that, where you're focusing that energy. And, there's a really interesting point for people that are listening. I think there's a challenge for people when it comes to whatever they perceive as their barrier. Education, as you just mentioned, tends to be one where you've gotten yourself to a certain level of perhaps academia and maybe designations and all these different professionalism. And then being able to perhaps let that go and realizing that you want to move your energy into another area. And well, what if I fail over here? I don't want to take a chance of losing out on this. And of course, perhaps a dramatic thing might be someone who's their doctor and they actually want to be a ballerina. That would seem really diverse or opposite directions. But we know that most of the time it's not quite that opposite. It's perhaps a doctor that wants to break out and run their own business, still with using their knowledge that they've gotten into that area. But at the end of the day, what I'm hearing you say is there are those items that they just identify with, those things that they want to stay like consistent with.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to not get caught up in the bright, shiny, and learn that business requires you to learn how to sell. And
yes,
a lot of people don't know. I mean, I work with so many people that don't know how to sell. You have to learn how to sell in a way that works for you. So there are lots of sales programs out there, and that's great. But if you learn how to sell in a way that works for you, and it comes from your heart and the way you are, then it's just an organic process. And I think the other part of what you were talking about is, I also call it the getting to your true north. Sometimes getting to your true north, you could be 5 degrees away from your true north by going for the app or going after the wrong market. And you're just so close that you have bought the Kool-Aid, drunk the Kool-Aid of the shiny stuff. It reminds me of a gal who has a food company. And when I met her, she'd raised, I don't know, like $3 million. I didn't really know this until after we started working together. And it was a cool product from Africa. And it was slated to be on every supermarket shelves, but nothing was happening. It wasn't working. And I said, well, I want to see how you think about it, how you sell. Like, she could sell to an investor, but she couldn't sell to get the product onto the shelf and then off to the shelf. And so we had to teach her a conversation on how to get the product onto the shelf and then off the shelf. And then we had to get her to open her eyes that her packaging was really garbage. And as soon as we put all of those things together, she ended up with 400 Ralphs, I think, of maybe one of those chains, and 200 other chains. And so it was in the frozen section. Once we cleaned up how she could sell, how she thought about sales, and how the sale needed to contribute to the end result. It's a really interesting nuance. So she was doing the right things, but 5 degrees of her true north.
Yeah. Actually, I'd love to share a great story with you on that. A friend of mine, a former fighter pilot, And he said, if you're 1 degree off, it may not seem like much, but going at the speed that you're going at, from here to there, you are miles away from
That's
where
right.
you want to be. And he said that's with a single degree. And so you have to learn to be able to make your course corrections as you fly. And it was really interesting because I remember this part of the story. He said, and you can't, when you're fighting a jet plane, you can't just take your head down and just look at all the instruments. He said you have to keep looking at where you're going, so you learn to be able to look at your dashboard quickly and get your eyes back forward quickly, so that then you take that information and keep going. And I thought that is so interesting, because as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we've also seen this where people take this, oh my goodness, a gregarious amount of time to start looking at all of these things, and they forget about what they're actually doing, which is flying the plane.
That's right. Yeah. Busy being busy, right? They're busy being
Yes.
busy.
Yes. Actually, I hate that word, to tell you the truth. I hate the word busy. People love to say it, but I thought, what is busy? For me, it's just sort of this, it comes out of people's mouths so naturally. Oh, sorry, I'm busy. Wait, you're busy? So what if I said that I had $1 million to give you? Would you still be busy?
That's
Oh,
right.
you're not busy. Okay,
Right.
and you realize the especially I think in business, the further you go, the more you realize that busyness sort of can kill a business, right?
Yeah.
And because you're off doing all of these things and you're not focused on the tasks in front of you, what you need to really be doing. And I had a very, very interesting story where a gentleman called me, and he was talking to me about something that I guess he wanted to sell me. And I just stayed on the phone long enough. I was actually in the hospital at that point in time when he's calling in, and I was just looking for a moment to say, look, I can't talk right now. And then he said, can we talk further about this? And I thought, okay, look, I'm not available right now.
Yeah.
Can we set up a time to speak further? Because I realized whatever he was saying, he could have been offering me $1 million. And
right.
because I was in the hospital, I couldn't recognize it because I was preoccupied with something else. And I said, okay, let's set up a time next week to talk further. I just can't speak with you right now. He said, absolutely. And then lo and behold, we set up this meeting, and it's on my agenda. I got to tell you the story, Sheevaun. It's on my agenda. I'm sitting there, I'm talking with the individual, and I said to him, I don't know what we are talking about. You called me, and I was in the hospital, and I don't know what this conversation is about, but I wanted to give you a chance to tell me what was going on. And he said, oh, well, it's XYZ. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And by the end of the conversation, we started talking about what is your company, is your business open to a partnership? Are you open to an additional investor? Because I was so blown away by what he was sharing with me that I said, I don't know if I just want to be a client. I think I'd like to be involved in the business, an investor in the business. And that was all just out of having that slight shift of not being busy, but realizing, okay, it didn't work for my time right here and now. Let's set that up another point in time.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So I love, I hate the word busy, and I do understand that we're always focused and trying to get the most out of our day. Now, I got to ask you a question, because you've worked with so many different people. I heard this a multimillionaire. He was online, and he was just saying that he actually interviewed, or he not interviewed, he was talking with a billionaire, and he was talking about people's schedules and how busy they are. And one of the things that and he was trying to figure out, how do I go and get to that next level? And the billionaire said to him, he said, you've got to learn to work less than what you're doing. And he actually said to him, you have to learn to work about 18 hours a week. And he said the reason being is that you need to have time for creativity. You need to be able to set aside time to be able to meet with people and be around them and have experiences, but understand that the level of value that you're going to bring does not come in those, trying to fit it in a 5-minute segment brainstorming, but rather allowing yourself time to be creative. In this world, in what you teach, do you think that people are perhaps too busy, or they don't work enough in or on their businesses?
I see people who are focused on the wrong thing for too long.
Yes.
Mental masturbation, mental cogitation, and
Okay.
And they're in the beginning, I said a lot of people get caught up in what to say. A lot of mental cogitation is happening because people don't know what to say, when to say it, the right sequence of saying it, speaking it, writing it, whatever that is. And there's so much content out there. It's like, well, what does somebody say in order to get a client to transmute and transform into a prospect into a client? And generally what's happening is people who work on their business work on it in a way that is going to help the communication so that the end result can occur more thoroughly, right? And I happened to get to spend a week on Richard Branson's island with him. So talk about a billionaire. I get to witness his life and his business in action. And I know he works a lot, but he doesn't work a lot.
Yeah.
And so the truth of the matter is his motto is, make sure my health is on track, make sure my attitude is on track, make sure I'm continuing to expand and hire people. He hires a lot of people to help him, which is amazing. Most people don't do that. And he's always looking to collaborate. I love that more people today are looking to collaborate because, and I say it that intentionally because we have been away from that for so long as entrepreneurs. We're looking to do it on our own and find our own zone and do our own thing. And the truth of the matter is, the more you play together, the more everybody gets to win.
Yes.
And he's always looking to collaborate. We were talking at dinner a year or two ago, and the guy who was sitting beside me, we were having this conversation about how a particular aspect of solar needed to be evolved or whatever. And he got up and left, and he wrote an email and came back to figure out how to collaborate. And so, yes, you need to spend the right amount of time doing the right things and have the right people so that they're just as on fire as you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing is, because back to this conversation that you've really been fostering here about energy, it's really about being able to harness the energy of people around you is what I'm hearing, and that thereby allowing you to be able to be focused on the areas that are most profitable, that are best suited for you to be able to be in, something like that.
Yes. It's so if you're a good writer, don't outsource your writing. right?
Right.
If
Yeah.
you're, I remember everyone kept saying to me, you need to hire people to write for you so you don't have to write. And I was like, oh, no, writing is like I love, like, give
You
me
love it.
fingers on a
Yeah.
keyboard and I just write. I just want
Yeah.
to write things because I think there's a way to communicate that I communicate that somebody else can't ever get unless it comes directly from me.
Right.
Um, so do the things that you're most amazing at that are going to bring yield or bring you something back in the most authentic way.
But Sheevaun, I don't know what that is. How do I figure
Oh,
that out?
well, let's talk, man.
That I'm sure you've heard that one before. People
I
coming to
have.
you and saying, "But Siobhan, I don't know what
I
my calling
know.
is. I don't know how to,
I
what I'm
know.
supposed to be doing."
I know. And I always say, so if I tell you, will you do it?
Whoa! Yes,
I'm
yes.
a little direct, so that's kind of
Come
why
on.
one of the reasons I get, yeah, I'm a little direct.
What happens when you say that?
Most people say, "Oh gosh, that's a really good question," because I think it should be this, and I'm like, "Oh, okay," and that's exactly how I will respond. "Oh, okay," and a client. I'll give you an example. A client
Oh my goodness.
recently,
Yes.
she has a brand that's different, and it's for styling. And I knew from the beginning that she'd have the right name. I was like,
Right.
okay, I got to get her to figure out how to open up to her right name.
Yeah.
So we grew the business. It's done amazing. And then she said, I'm going to do rebranding. I'm like, oh, let's see. And I said, so I think you need to use this name. And I gave her the name. And she just went ballistic. And I said, that's okay. You don't have to take it if you don't want. I
Right.
don't care. It's your business.
Right.
But I'm kind of really genius at this. So you
Yeah.
probably should just consider it and take it to your branding person and see
Yeah.
what they say. And the branding person was off the charts going, that's the
Right.
best name ever. And
Yeah.
so it took my style client, who has a very great style business, to really turn the dial so that what could happen is she could allow herself to change the name. So a lot of
Yeah.
people don't want to do what I say because they're so married to their to
Yeah.
this thing. You know, we wouldn't have things like Apple the way it is. We wouldn't have iPhones today if everybody had been married to one idea. We wouldn't have um, Wi-Fi the way it is. We wouldn't have Facebook the way it is. I mean, we wouldn't have a lot of things if
Mm.
everybody was so married to the one idea. You have to be willing to pivot.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so interesting. If I showed you, it would I'm still laughing about that one. Okay, so tell us a little bit about what's exciting you these days that you're working on, and what's sort of the direction that you're moving in 2023.
I'm kind of minute by minute, but right now
Free
more than
flowing
ever.
energy. Yeah, tell
Yeah,
us.
flowing with the energy.
Yeah.
The image that you see on the screen right now, we just finished that rebrand.
Oh, wonderful.
And so we're kind of working through some things, but I think there are two pieces that I'm very excited about. One,
Yeah.
um, I have a thing about helping people understand where their prosperity is and where it's stuck. And so we just created a scorecard. It's taken us a long time to create this scorecard.
A,
And
a
people can score them.
prosperity scorecard.
That's right. I'm pretty
Okay.
excited about that because nobody really knows exactly where they're stuck and where they get hung up in their
Mm.
prosperity. So I wanted to reveal some things to them. That's one. And then the other one is the words thing. My client who has the app with the vocabulary got me talking about a book that I wrote that I hadn't released, The Secret Energy of Words, and how words, I don't remember exactly the subtitle, but how words basically help us fail and sometimes make us succeed.
Nice.
and the energy of that. And so I'm pretty excited about that, because if I look at the entire course of the time I've been helping folks do whatever they're magically here to do and prosper and, scale and all the cool things that they're here to do, there is always an element of saying the right things with the right energy to achieve a result every single time.
Saying the right things with the right energy. Saying the right things with the right energy. Can you say more about that?
Sure. So I lived in the South for about a hot second, and women in the South, I didn't understand this, but they were not liking me. And they said this to my face. They said, "I cannot stand you." And I felt like I had been loved all over. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought, that's an energy thing. That's totally an energy thing. They're sending really ugly, poopy energy that they hate me, and yet they're just dripping it in love.
Wow. Okay.
And so we often say things with anger energy or force energy or chaotic energy. That's the most common one, chaotic energy. And then the person on the other side can't hear us. They don't know how to buy from us. They don't know how to say yes to us. They don't know what action to take from us, etc. And so when you blend the words and the energy and you put that together in such a cadence, what starts to happen is results automatically start to show up.
Mhm. I believe you 100% on that. And what's coming to mind is, I'm in real estate, and one of my specialties is hard money lending, or private lending, as we call it here. And I recognize when I'm talking to someone, and I recognize that I can help them, as opposed to it. They want to give me money. Okay, fine, great. But the moment I realize that there's value that I'm able to bring, I recognize it in my person, and I recognize that it comes out on the phone immediately.
Right, that's
Oh,
your beingness.
absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
what you're talking about, the beingness. You can sense it.
yeah. And it sort of wipes away whatever pre-existing thoughts there are around selling, sales, any of those kind of things, because that you're bringing value to that person. And now it just becomes a question of whether they see the value and whether you're able to convey it to them.
And that's the words and the energy. So you
Yeah.
have that beingness, and then you got to combine it with the words and the energy, so the transaction becomes inevitable.
Yeah. And now maybe you can say something about this. I've noticed that sometimes if the energy, if your being is there, you sometimes just having that value, even if the words aren't there, the person on the other side of the phone or whatever, even if the words aren't there exactly, they recognize the energy that's in behind it, and something happens. I'm going to say almost magical, even if
Yeah,
those words aren't even there.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
like as
That's
if we
true.
can almost sense that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is kind of magical, but that's
Yeah.
really, I mean, it's about finding that magicalness and having
Yeah.
it as a repeatable. And I like to give people
Ooh.
the repeatable magicalness, the
Ooh.
repeatable way of accessing that, and really taking that forward so it can become
Yeah.
part of their zone of genius, their business
Yes.
dynamic, their
Yes.
conversation, etc. But it has to be
Yes.
repeatable. I'm a scientist,
Yes.
so I like repeatable things.
Yes. So if people want to get more, they want to learn more, they want to interact with you, find out about your material and your courses, how do they find you? Obviously we've got SheevaunMoran.com, spelled
Yep.
SheevaunMoran.com.
Yep.
And where else can they find you?
They can find me on all the socials, every single one there is.
Yeah.
And I'm always saying something. And let's see, what else would we don't have the prosperity scorecard up, but if you want the
Okay.
scorecard,
Yes.
it's in the last phases of that. Just email me at author, AUTHOR, at SheevaunMoran.com. And
Nice.
then we'll send you a link once we have it fully ready. I approved some of it today. It's coming along. I'm really excited about this. I really think that people need to learn how to find out where their prosperity is super is in the trash.
Yeah.
So they can get out of
Okay.
it.
Give us some clarity. If they check out this prosperity scorecard, what is this really going to tell them?
So here's what it is. So I have an
Okay.
intake form that's very long for
Okay.
all of my clients. And
Yes.
every single one of my clients has said just the intake form was worth the entire investment. And of course, I'm
Wow.
very expensive.
Okay.
And because it makes them go through things in their mind and their energy and their psychology
Mhm.
and their history and how they think about health and how they think about money and how they think about business and all of
Yes.
the 6 places that I talk about. And so basically what I did is I took that very long intake form and I synthesized it down to questions that will help people have epiphanies in each different, every couple questions, you'll have some sort of epiphany about how you're behaving or how you're not behaving.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, you want to check out the prosperity scorecard? We'll put the links in the show notes. And Sheevaun, really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us, sharing your life, sharing about energy. I think we're definitely in a place and time where there is so many energies going in so many different directions that it
Yeah.
really is important to take that moment to be mindful of what you're saying and what you're doing, but more importantly, where your energy is focused in your
So
life.
true. Thank you so
Love
much.
it.
Great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, guys, this has been another episode of the Leadership to Wealth podcast, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.